I'm going to call the regular meeting of the City of Coolidge City Council, June 24, 2019, to order. Note that we don't have anyone here to give the invocation, and ask that people please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Norma, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember Jimmy Walker?
Here.
Councilmember Tina Kaufman? Councilmember Steve Hudson? Mayor John Thompson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry?
Here.
Councilmember Ben Navarro?
Here.
And Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta? Here. Thank you. We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So, under item number 4, presentations, the 2019 Arizona Emergency Medical Services Award winner, P.J. McCullough, and Officer Bradley Fulton. Discussion only. Chief?
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, City Council members, I'm very proud to stand here today to recognize 2 of our first responders. January 19th began like any normal Saturday for the Hansen family, but by mid-afternoon, a full-fledged nightmare came to life right outside their Heartland Ranch home. Karen Hansen had just finished slicing apples for the couple's 3 other children, shortly after feeding their youngest son, Hiram, when she noticed that the 10-month-old Hiram had somehow managed to get hold of an apple slice, and seconds later he began choking. Coolidge firefighter P.J. McCullough was one of the first responders. With first responders were unable to retrieve the apple from the baby's airway, it became clear that Hiram would have to get to the hospital and fast. During this time, Officer Fulton initially received the child upon his arrival, began life-saving measures, and passed off the baby to firefighter McCullough during this time. There was a second ambulance coming so that there would be 2 paramedics in the truck. Coolidge Fire looked at the situation and said that they cannot wait, so instead McCullough jumped into the ambulance with the AMR crew to administer CPR while paramedics worked on ventilating the baby. Today, baby Hiram is alive and well due to the swift and decisive actions of our first responders. Last week, they were recognized by Arizona EMS Conference, which is a statewide conference, and they were selected as 2 of the Aces of Heart Award recipients for the entire state of Arizona. This is a pretty coveted honor within the EMS community, and they were going up against first responders from every county within the state, and they were selected for the Life-Saving Award. Tonight, I wanted to recognize them locally as well, even though they've already been recognized on a state level. Officer Fulton. And Engineer McCullough.
She's been promoted to photographer for Coolidge Examiner.
There you go.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We're very proud of you guys. You do a great job, and we appreciate it. I'm sure the Hansons are very grateful, as we all are. Keep up the good work. Okay. You chiefs should be proud of these guys. I'm sure you are, though. Very much so. They're doing a good job. They're outnumbered, but they're doing a good job. Okay, we'll move on. Item 5, monthly report by the Coolidge Youth Coalition.
Hello, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Mandy Alexander, and I'm the project coordinator of the Coolidge Youth Coalition. Tonight, I am joined by our CYC Director, Sharon Boyd, and Captain James Taylor from the Arizona National Guard Counter-Drug Task Force. Captain Taylor recently reached out to the Coolidge Youth Coalition to support our mission in keeping youth and families in Coolidge safe, healthy, and drug-free. Sharon will be introducing Captain Taylor, who is going to be sharing information on resources and partnership opportunities to keep prevention a priority in Coolidge after our DFC grant expires in September. So, Sharon?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. My name is Sharon Boyd, and I'm the director of the Coolidge Youth Coalition. Tonight, as Mandy mentioned, we wanted to share with you a partnership that we have formed, and we are very excited about it. The Arizona National Guard Counter-Drug Task Force, the Civil Operations, has reached out to the Coolidge Youth Coalition with their manpower, with their resources, and with their expertise to come up with an action plan for sustainable resources and grant funding to keep prevention in place beyond the Drug-Free Communities grant, which, as you know, it will be ending September 30th. It has been my absolute privilege to direct the DFC grant, and this council has supported everything we have done. And we want to thank you for that, and we want to tell you how much we want to keep prevention in the city of Coolidge for our kids, for our families, and for our community. And we are so grateful for the Arizona National Guard reaching out to us. And tonight I would like to introduce Captain James Taylor from the Arizona National Guard Counter-Drug Task Force. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. As she mentioned, my name is James Taylor. I'm with the Arizona National Guard. I'm very happy to be here. It's my first time in Coolidge. But I work on a really unique team on counter-drug. All 54 states and territories have a counter-drug task force. Arizona's happens to be the 4th largest based on the threat and the threat assessment that the HIDA puts out each year. With that being said, I work in civil operations, which is on the demand reduction and prevention side. And we've got 3 main lines of effort. We work directly with the Governor's Office and the Governor's Office of Youth, Faith, and Family on some high-level projects on the prevention side there. We work directly with Don Mertz and Shelley Mowry with the HIDA on their prevention efforts. And then our 3rd line of effort is working with community coalitions such as the Coolidge Youth Coalition. And Sharon and Mandy, while we've only known for about 6 weeks now, as we were cold calling coalitions across the state, have been doing a really great job. But it's also almost inevitable that something's going to change over the next 3 months because that DFC funding's going away. So we are going to work closely with them on some sort of action plan that will keep the CYC in place. It's a vital resource to all communities having a drug prevention coalition. We're not sure what it's going to look like. We're hoping to procure some funding early September that will allow us to at least keep one full-time resource on that. But likely we will be working over the next year to procure additional funding so we can have at least 2 full-time resources on that CYC. We do all kinds of things for certain coalitions. It's really based on what the coalitions need. It could be filling a community sector role in the coalition. It could be marketing campaigns. It could be grant writing. But at the end of the day, our job is to come in direct support of the coalition to make sure that coalition is maximizing their effectiveness within the community and helping engage community members. But I wish we would have found them a year earlier, so we could have worked some possible grants prior to that. But I'm definitely very concerned that that DFC grant money is going away, because it's really, really hard to sustain a coalition without that funding. So I wanted to open it up if you guys had any questions for myself, my role. I've got a team of 19 people completely dedicated across the state on just working the prevention side. So we will give you guys and the coalition whatever resources they need. But there's certain to be some changes over this next year.
Yeah, Captain, are you, they stay in contact with the local authorities quite a bit. I know that the chief and I were on a committee with them for a long time with the CYC. I'm just wondering, do you guys have committees that you work with, that you talk to and meet with, or do you just pretty much do it, or how do you operate?
Everything that Counter Drug does, and there's about 150 Counter Drug members across the state in various different missions. We've got aerial reconnaissance folks that work primarily with Customs and Border Protection. We've got ground reconnaissance folks that work a lot with DPS, local law enforcement, marijuana eradication teams. But on the civil operations or the demand reduction side, everything we do and everything that Counter Drug does is in direct support of. So if and hopefully this isn't the case, but let's say Sharon and Mandy are no longer here October, right? There's no funding, and they're gone. There's no one for us to work with, and we can't necessarily go in and do things on our own. So I couldn't just go to Safford and say, hey, I want to start a coalition, and the guard is going to sponsor that and take that. We have to be in direct support of some organization, and that organization right now is the Coolidge Youth Coalition. And so we're going to do everything that we can between Mandy and Sharon to make sure that we come up with the best possible action plan to at least preserve one of those roles, hopefully with some good luck and a little bit of funding, and then really focus on a short-term action plan, meaning 6 to 12 months, how we can procure some additional funding to create some long-term sustainability for the efforts that the coalition is producing. Did that answer your question, Mayor?
Yeah, well, it did. I mean, they weren't too involved in the surveillance in the ground, going towards the border and doing the groundwork, but they were in the schools quite a bit. So
yes, absolutely, and as a civil operations person, that's what we're working. Our goal is to influence that next generation. Many folks from Frank Milstead to Doug Coleman with DEA, everyone came to the realization that we're never going to interdict ourselves out of this drug problem, right? And so over the last year, there's been a big trend in the prevention side and resources towards prevention. And that's what really stood up our 19-person team about a year and a half ago.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about short notice here because you'd like to have been working with them a little earlier, but is there anything that we can do in the way, what kind of things can we do as a city in the way of resolutions of support, or that would make the application or any applications you're working on stronger?
I think, and I'd hate speaking for the coalition because we're very new jumping in, but we've had a couple of really good meetings. At the end of the day, we've got resources that can help write grants, and we've already identified a couple, both on the administrative side as well as on grants that will fund activities for the youth. But I think what we can ask for from Coolidge, and really any town that has a community-based organization fighting this war on drugs, is community engagement. So there's typically a coalition of 25 to 30 people. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. And it's great, but what we find is there's usually 1 or 2 people that are carrying the load of that work. And we've got to somehow find a way to better engage Coolidge. And that's everyone, right? We need everyone to understand that there's a problem. We need everyone to raise their hand and say, how can I help? Just like you said, Mr. Miller. Because it takes a village. It really does. And we could come in and bring 3 or 4 resources down here. We can keep Sharon and Mandy. But at the end of the day, it's going to take school, representatives from the school It's going to take concerned parents. It's going to take the youth themselves, right? It's going to take fire and EMS and police. It's going to take religious affiliations, and there's 12 sectors that make up these coalitions, and we want to make sure we've got those 12 sectors rounded out. But at the end of the day, we just need engagement and support from the community in all of our efforts to be successful. So it's a challenge. There's no question, and no one's doing it great. You know, we support 25 or so coalitions across the state, and everyone's kind of at a varying level of community engagement and coalition engagement and support and funding. But no one's really knocking it out of the ballpark. But what I have found is that these smaller towns, and I'm a small town kid from Indiana, these smaller towns tend to be more engaged and tend to have that drive to succeed because they feel the effect. If it's one person that overdoses, they know that person or they know that person's parents. And so I think it's a lot easier to engage those smaller towns. So. Any other questions, sir?
Anybody else?
No.
No, I don't have any.
All right, great. Well, we're very much looking forward to the partnership, and I think these next several months will be key. I'd expect that we'll have an update for you over the next couple months, just due to the nature of the urgency, just to keep the town in the loop with what's going on, sir.
Well, thank you, Captain Taylor. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is call to the public yet again. So if anybody in the public wants to address the council, please step up to the podium and speak your mind on any issue you'd like. The only thing I would ask, if it's related to any of the other issues on the agenda, please wait for that issue to be called. Okay, seeing nobody move up, we will move out of call to the public. And we will move into public hearings. Public hearing. Item number 6, public hearing to receive public comments on proposed amendment of sections 502, 503, 504, 505, 506, 903, and 904 of the zoning code. Mr. Lopez.
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, council members. This proposed amendment will allow builders the option of using eaves that extend closer than 5 feet to the property line if they choose to implement additional requirements from the building code. So we currently allow eaves to go into the 5-foot setback, but this would clarify and make it part of the zoning code also. And this is a recommendation that's forwarded to you from the Planning and Zoning Commission. At the last meeting, we published this in the Coolidge Examiner on June 5th, 2019. So all this is a way for us to make the zoning code work better with the building code. So we're not allowing buildings to go closer together. We're just allowing the eaves, the roof overhang. If it goes into that 5-foot area, it has to be done according to the building code and built with fireproof materials. It could be bird blocking, other things that are done on the eave to prevent fire from jumping. And I'll answer any questions you may have. I know I had some calls about this concerning the setbacks.
Well, that was going to be my question, Mr. Lopez. If it was going to be closer, moving them closer, I can tell you right now I was going to vote no.
I understand.
There was a guy that sat right here named Paul Pretchell at one time that voted, didn't like small lots, and I agree with him on that. I think
Right.
I know how it's going now and everything's getting, but they're so close now. I don't know how our fire department's fighting these fires in those spaces. And if we move them closer together, I think we're just asking for more trouble. But this isn't going to actually move them closer together. It's
Correct.
just going to, when I read through it, it's just going to, different materials and fireproof materials that are going to make it harder for it to burn if it does catch on fire.
Correct, Mayor. Some of the setbacks that are already out there were approved with the PADs years ago. And so we have some that are 5 foot on one side, 10 on the other. That's typical in the city in the older parts. And in the PADs and these that are being built, staff, Tim Hansen looks at every model that comes in and makes sure that the 5-foot sections don't end up next to each other and that the elevations are varied. And so we watch that fairly carefully to make sure we follow what's approved. So all this does, if that eave comes into that 5-foot area, it will be required to meet the building code, and it's just clarifying that because we currently do that now.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, just to clarify that, so how you say that you adjust the houses, so if you have that eave that comes into the 5-foot area, and say it extends so it's 3 feet away from the property line, they're saying that the next house over would be shifted away so there was still that same gap, because my concern would be that you have 6 feet between the eaves and you have 10 feet between the house, and if one burns, even with fireproof materials, after time, 5 years, 10 years in this Arizona heat, all that will degrade. And so my concern is if it burns 10 years from now, what was fireproof today will not be fireproof a decade from now.
Yeah, we do try to vary them, but there could have a situation where they are 6 foot apart. But if they're closer than that, you know, it's a fireproofing material that's supposed to keep that from spreading, because what you're doing is buying time for the fire apparatus to get there and for people to get out of the house, because you could have that situation. Even when something's burning, the embers go in the air, you know, you can't stop that. But so hopefully with the type of material we have, smoke alarms and everything else, we'll prevent that from jumping so easily. And as you notice, some houses also have the drywall up and there's no eave. They come up and finish up underneath the tile, and that it looks really nice, but it's also another way to prevent fire from jumping from building to building. So there are different techniques that are used by the building developers and the builders, and the zoning code just tries to address. The zoning code addresses the setback. The building code addresses the fire rating and the type of material you use the closer you get. So the building code will allow you to go to 0 lot line if you do a 1-hour firewall. But in this case, the zoning code won't allow you to do that. So it's just an exception for the eaves only, just the overhang.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I was in zoning for 20 plus years. This is the first community I've ever worked for where the setback is measured from the eave. It's generally measured from the face of the building. If you look at our code, there's conflicting provisions in the zoning code. One section says that the setback, there are exceptions to the setback for bay windows and fireplace. You know, people want a little fireplace where the chimney actually extends out beyond the edge of the wall. Those encroachments are allowed, and it even says that eaves, the encroachment of the eave is allowed to within 3 feet of the property line. But there's another provision in the code that says you have to be 5 feet from the eave to the property line. So there's conflicting provisions. I think this takes away that conflicting provision and allows what most communities consider for a setback from the building face to the property line, not from the eave to the property line.
And that falls in line with some of the changes we made before, where, as City Manager Miller said, where the porches and certain things weren't allowed, and we changed the language to allow them in to certain areas because the zoning code had conflicts in it. So this is the same effort to fix that and just make sure everything works the same and it works closely with the building code.
Well, I don't agree with conflicting provisions. I mean, that just causes more problems.
It is confusing.
On the other hand, you know, these houses are close enough together. Is this going to, I don't know.
Setbacks are generally 5 and 10, or in most residential areas, 5 foot on one side, 10 foot on the other, minimum. So you could have 2 buildings that are 10 feet apart, building wall to building wall. The eaves, in theory, could be 6 feet apart, like you were mentioning. But the building code allows for that, okay, with the proper type of construction.
I guess my concern is that you're saying that the face of the building is 5 feet away from the property line. You could hang your eave over 1 foot, 2 foot.
1 foot, 2 foot max.
However long. We talked earlier, and you said this is all part of the national code, and there's lots of people who are writing this. They're a lot smarter than I am. But I guess my thing is, too, is I see it just as the mayor does, is that these lots are plenty small. And to see them squeeze everything in, it seems like just one more way to squeeze in one more house. I know that's why you guys are going along and you make sure they're separated and you're doing your best. I would just hate to see that this turns into where they're just stacking them in just as much as they can.
No, Councilmember Navarro, this is not the case. In fact, everything that's going on right now is in compliance So we're not changing anything that's going out in the field, these PADs and these houses being built. All we're doing is adjusting the zoning code to reflect that. So the building code isn't changing, it's still providing the utmost safety in the way things are built. We're just repairing this portion of the zoning code so they work together closer.
So it's basically language change.
Yes, Councilmember Walker, that's correct.
You know, I don't see the fire chief stepping to the podium, maybe because he hasn't been invited, and I don't want to put anybody, you know, one side or the other, but I'd sure like to hear what you think about this situation. I'm curious.
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, council members, I did quite a bit of research on this subject today, looking through numerous NFPA codes that are about 10 to 15 volumes in length. And I did narrow it down to NFPA 101, which is Life Safety Code. It does not, the NFPA 101 does not specify a specific distance away. And the reason why is because these are national codes, meaning to cover every municipality in the country. Obviously, you know, we have a lot more area to spread out than people on the East Coast and so on and so forth. So that's one of the reasons they really don't put hard and fast numbers on this type of code. They leave it up to the municipalities to decide what is a good separation. But now what it does say in NFPA 101, it's actually Chapter 8 as well, that if overhangs or buildings that are connected to these buildings reach a certain distance away, which is, that distance is left up to the municipality, that they must be made of certain fireproofing materials with at least a 1 hour fire rating. And that's basically all it says. So it's really up to the council, up to the planning commission, up to our building department to determine what the distance is that works for us.
Well, thanks a lot, Chief. It's a public hearing, Tim. Come on up.
Have Tim come up and clarify.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. For clarification, our PAD areas, your Heartland Ranches, Landmark Ranch, McClellan Meadows, these guys have already negotiated their way into this allowance. They do this now. It's allowed. It's been approved. We're talking about changing R1, 2, 3, 4, infill overlay, mobile home, which encompasses the older part of town. Your average lots are about 50 feet wide. It's pretty standard to see a 35-foot wide housing product come in, and those zoning districts all have staggered 5-10 setbacks throughout the interior of the lots. So this came up recently with a builder doing infill, 35-foot wide project, 50-foot wide lot, and those were in conflict. It's what the neighbor had, whose house has been there for 50 years, and the code change allows them to come within 3 feet of the property line. But your typical eave is no more than 10 inches on the side. To have a 2-foot eave is very uncommon. And we are strictly talking about the side lots. Those encroachments are already permitted in the front and rear setbacks. So this is, I guess, bringing the older part of town onto the same playing field as the PADs. Many of which have 5 and 5 setbacks within the PADs that are approved, and they are allowed these encroachments anyway. At least in the older part of the town, they have staggered 5-10s, and we try and make them be that way.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions for Tim?
I guess I have one question. Can you set how far they can hang their eave out? So they have to keep their setbacks 5 and 10 for the actual face of the building, and they're allowed to hang this eave out. But can you keep it so they can only go 12, 16 inches, no more? We
could codify that and place that restriction. Right now, we're only proposing to not allow them within 3 feet, which is kind of ties back to some building codes and stuff that don't allow those projections closer than that without provisions for firewalls and things like that. The projection within that 5 feet, that encroachment, is everywhere. You don't have that projection if you build a Santa Fe style house, and other than that, you pretty much have it, even on a manufactured home.
I was just going to say, it's already in the PADs that we're working on, they're filling in. But in the future, with other PADs, can that be changed?
In the future, as the PADs come before the Zoning Commission, the Council for approval, it will be at your discretion to approve those or not.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll just, in working with a lot of home builders over the years, they're not going to be used to what you're thinking about doing. Their setbacks are measured from the building walls. You could render a lot of properties in Coolidge unbuildable if you had too strict of a requirement requiring an eave to be 4 or 5 feet away from a property line. Just as a matter of information there, knowing the home builders.
It was just a question.
Just want to let you know that'd be uncommon.
Mr. Miller, I don't think we're going to want to be held hostage by something that's unsafe for our citizens. We're just trying to determine if this is...
Yeah, there's nothing unsafe. We would not be proposing something to be unsafe. The building code says within 3 feet of the property line from it for an eave.
Yeah, this is standard construction. It's being done everywhere. Back when I was the plans examiner in Glendale, we had this too. And I was a plant examiner at the city in the 90s. So the 3-foot setback has been around for a long time. So we're not proposing anything dangerous or anything worse than, all we're doing is bringing the wording for the zoning code in line to work with the building code. And as Tim said, just fix it so it works in the older parts of town. And this is just the public hearing part, so if somebody wants to comment on it, then later on we have the item come back before you.
That's why we have the public hearings.
That's right.
All right. Anybody have anything else? No. Okay, then we'll move out of the public hearing and move into items for consent. Is there anybody that wants any of these items pulled off and dealt with separately? Let me know before I go on my marathon read. Okay, hearing nobody, here we go. Item 7. Consider approval of appointing Finance Director Gabriel Garcia as Chief Fiscal Officer for the City of Coolidge for fiscal year 1920. Item 8, consider approval of the letter of agreement for professional services with Fitzgibbons Law Offices, PLC, for the purpose of providing legal services to the city through June 30th, 2020. Item 9, consider approval of the letter of agreement for professional services with Ms. Janet Minato for the purpose of providing public defender services to the city's municipal court through June 30th, 2020. Item 10, consider approval of FY 17-18 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report Audit for filing. Item 11, consider approval of the agreement and addendum between the City of Coolidge and Colby Powell, LLC in the amount of $26,750 to conduct the fiscal year 18-19 audits. Item 12, consider approval of amending the city's current salary plan for fiscal year 2019-2020. Resolution number 19-10, a resolution of the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Coolidge, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting a policy and prescribing procedures for purchasing from the Mayor and any member of the Council. Item 14, consider approval of entering into an authorization for services between the City of Coolidge and Westland Resources, Inc. for scope of work to review and represent the city's interest in the development of a license agreement with Global Water Resources to provide wastewater services to the city's planning area boundary south of Highway 387. Item 15, consider approval of entering into a lease agreement between the City of Coolidge and Boeing Company for the purpose of leasing a 100 by 100-foot parcel of land at the Coolidge Municipal Airport. And item 16, consider approval of the claims for the month of May 2019. Okay, I need a motion to act.
Mayor,
Yes.
move to approve item number 7 through 16 as read.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Norma, please.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Navarro,
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta,
Yes.
Councilmember Walker,
Yes.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on business under regular items. Ordinance number 19-09, an ordinance of the City of Coolidge, Arizona, amending sections 502G3, 503G3, 504J3, 505H3, 506H3, 903H3, 904G of the zoning code to allow for roof projections to extend closer than 5 feet to a side property line, provided certain building code requirements are satisfied.
Mr. Mayor, this is actually ordinance 1910. We had a small error in the agenda. 1909 was used as a special meeting for the budget. This ordinance is 1910.
So they all move up one then, down the line.
No,
Just
Just this one?
the others are resolutions.
All right, then I'll change it. Ordinance number 1910.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, council members, as we discussed before in the public hearing part, this is to approve the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation for approval based on what we just discussed earlier, and they did this at their June 5th meeting this month. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Does anybody have any more questions?
No.
All right, then in that case.
Mayor, move to approve ordinance number 1910 as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Norma.
Councilmember Walker,
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta,
Yes.
Councilmember Navarro,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Item 18, resolution number 19-11, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, approving and adopting a uniform video service license agreement, an application to comply with Arizona Revised Statutes, ARS Title IX, Chapter 13, relating to uniform regulation and licensing of video and cable service providers. And I see this was another move the legislature forced upon us.
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, council members. Yes, in 2018, the legislature adopted Senate Bill 1140, which required cities and towns to issue a uniform video service licenses to video service providers like Cox and some of the others. So we're required that by July 1st, 2019, which is next month, pretty quick, cities and towns are required to have a uniform application affidavit and agreement in place. So that's what you see as attachments to this. And basically what it does, the legislatures, I talked to Ken Strobick at the league a little earlier today and to go back and remember all this stuff in 2018. And basically what it was is to bring uniformity to the requirements for licensing. And also it sets an amount for franchise fee. So it doesn't get rid of the franchise fee, but in January 1st of 2020, they can elect to get out of our franchise agreement and they go to the uniform one. But the uniform one, it goes up to 5% of a franchise fee. We currently have a franchise fee at 3%, so we'd still be okay as far as the franchise fee goes, but it wouldn't allow you to go beyond the 5% is what we looked. So this will go in effect July 1st, 2019, and then they can actually decide to go with our franchise agreement or get out of it. And then if they do get out of it, they go to this uniform licensing. But this is just to comply with the requirements of Arizona Revised Statutes as approved by the legislature, as the mayor stated. Now I'll answer any questions you may have.
Does anybody have any questions regarding this?
No, sir.
I had a note here, Gilbert, and I don't know what happened to it, but I thought it was kind of interesting.
Mayor, is this your notes up here?
Yeah, probably is.
Okay, that's Claire's.
Is that the one that has?
It was left up here. I wasn't sure whose it was.
Yeah. You guys got a raise tonight, so you should be happy. Under 9/14/21 in the subscriber complaints on this, it says they have 4 options for this law on who the consumers can complain to, which I thought was interesting considering we don't really control this service, but the city is one of them. And we haven't decided on any of this. I mean, we're going to have to do this, and we don't really have a choice here.
Correct.
I mean, it's state law, so we have to comply or suffer the consequences. But we don't have to manage their complaints, take the phone calls if their cable goes out, and report back to the cable company, do we? I just thought that was interesting. Who would do that?
Mayor Thompson, right now what happens is with this change is the cable-related disputes are overseen by the Office of Administrative Hearings at the state level.
Okay. Well, I mean, like if your cable goes out,
Yeah.
you call somebody, right?
The Office of Administrative Hearings, I guess. First the cable company, then probably the city, and then.
Well, the city's on the list. There's 4 of them. The
Yeah.
city's one of them. They
Yeah.
want the city to manage manage
Correct.
their deal for them. And we don't have staff to do that.
Correct, Mayor.
So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't considering any of that. Okay. Yeah, if you read through that law and you see everything they can do, in an emergency situation, they can just tear up the road.
That's correct, Mayor. And the thing is, at least they didn't take away the franchise fee completely, which is something the league was fighting for, to not do that and salvage some of our local control. That was part of the league's effort. So this is what they came up with as a compromise. Because there was another bill that was worse, way worse than this.
Well, that would have been an interesting bill.
Yeah.
Because this one's pretty interesting as it is. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we really don't have any choice, so need a motion to do something?
Motion to approve resolution number 19-11 as read.
Second.
Okay. Norma?
Councilmember Navarro?
Yes.
Councilmember Murieta?
Yes.
Councilmember Walker?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you.
What are you going to do?
Thank you all.
All right. Item 19. Resolution number 19-12, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, adopting the public safety personnel retirement system pension funding policy and accepting the city's share of assets and liabilities under the public safety personnel retirement system architectural valuation report. I can't read. Go ahead.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, this is another one that you really don't have a say in. We just have to we have to put it in action. Just a little history. In 2018, in that same legislative session you just heard about, House Bill 2097 required governing bodies to have a plan in which PSPRS unfunded liabilities are paid, and it has to be in action no later than July 1st, which is next week, I believe. And this is basically how we're going to pay down the unfunded liabilities. We've been doing that ever since the big kind of blow up, if you will, with this happened. The goal is to be paid down by June 30, 2036. Currently, as of 2017, the unfunded liabilities are the fire department is about $2,440, and the police department is about $6,953,627. The city currently pays what's called an ARC, or a annual required contribution, as part of our PSPRS payments. And so, according to their actuarial valuations, if we pay that ARC along with our normal payments that we have, by 2036, we should have those liabilities down. There are some other communities that took more aggressive actions, took out loans or paid them down. We feel at this time that it's better for us just to go ahead and pay the ARCs and get it caught up through our normal contributions. And so basically all we're doing tonight is putting in policy what we've been doing since this whole thing started. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
No, no, once again. Okay, I need a motion to, and if there's no anybody have any questions?
No.
I mean, I don't agree. We need it. It's good. I mean, these guys deserve it, but man, they came out of nowhere a couple of years ago and really laid it to us.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's something we're coping with every year, and we make those payments, and hopefully by 2036 we'll get it paid down. So.
Yeah. Okay. The motion to do something.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to approve Resolution 1912 as read.
Second.
Okay. Norma?
Councilmember Murrieta?
Yes.
Councilmember Walker?
Yes.
Councilmember Navarro?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Report from the mayor and council and city manager. We'll start down here with Councilmember Walker.
Just want to take a minute again to thank the police chief and the fire chief for what they do. Councilmember Marietta said a couple weeks ago, you really don't know what they do unless you go to one of their award ceremony or you see something like this tonight. With that said, the direction we're going, which I am very happy with. The annexations, I think, as a council, we need to sit down with staff and start looking at what direction that we want our fire department to go. I think we're in a situation right now that if we were to see anything major that it could hurt us. I know a couple weeks ago we had the brush fire out south, and from my understanding there was 7 firefighters from Coolidge, and if it wasn't for mutual aid, I don't know what we would have done. I couldn't imagine if at that time we had a structure fire in town, how we would manage that. But I think now's the time as we move forward, when Nicola come in, we need to sit down with, the council needs to sit down with staff and have a plan of what we're going to do in the near future and how we're going to handle growth and just overall fire protection in the city. That's all I have.
Tatiana?
I don't have anything.
Well, I agree with Councilman Walker. The fire protection issue is a big thing, and sitting down with everybody, getting everybody on the same page would be a good thing. Along with that, I didn't have too much going on. I went down to the library Friday and had them suck me dry for the blood drive. I still got a bruise on me, but that's a good thing. You guys are putting that up, and the Red Cross comes, and every time I go, I see lots of people there, so that's a good thing that everybody's doing. Other than that, that's all I got.
All I have is I went to the Pinal Partnership breakfast with the mayor and our Development Services Director, Gilbert Lopez, and the mayor's, how many mayors was there up there? 6? And so they answered questions and everything, and our mayor did a fabulous job, as always. And I want to thank you for that, Mayor.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You go by City Hall and the library. They're doing the prep work right now. We're going to be repainting those 2 buildings that haven't had a facelift other than the library in quite a few years. So you'll see a lot of peeling paint that's being sprayed off, and we'll see a new coat of paint, a little bit different paint scheme, but I think it'll be a very attractive addition to the downtown area with the other Justice Court renovations that have been going on and some of the other really nice additions that the people are making to their facades in the downtown. This will just be another nice addition for the downtown redevelopment efforts. I don't have anything else, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't have anything to add. I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you for coming, everybody.